There is a peculiar thing about being chosen. Those who carry a calling do not walk through this world unseen. Even when they wish to pass unnoticed, there is something in their bearing, in their words, in the quiet persistence of their conscience, that makes others pause. It is not always admiration. Sometimes it is suspicion, sometimes jealousy, sometimes curiosity, but whatever the response, they are seen. The world has always had a way of sensing when eternity rests upon a person. It is not because such a person is flawless or dazzling, but because a light has been lit in them that no human hand can extinguish. When the divine mark is placed upon a life, it is as though heaven itself has written an invisible script upon the soul. And people notice, even if they cannot read it. You may ask, why me? Why this watchfulness from others, this attention I never sought? The answer is both humbling and unsettling, because you carry something not of your own making. You bear a calling that whispers to eternity, and when eternity whispers, time listens. Even those who do not believe in God still feel the tremor of His presence when it passes through you. It is not comfortable to be seen this way. For some, the gaze of others feels like a weight, a constant measure, a test you never signed up to take. But understand this, the notice you draw is not about your own greatness, but about the greatness of the one who called you. The vessel is not praised because it is clay, but because it holds a treasure. Consider this, if you carry God's calling, you are not merely walking through the corridors of ordinary life. You are carrying a signal fire, visible from afar, sometimes even before you realize you are carrying it. That is why strangers sense something in you before you open your mouth. That is why some are drawn to you without knowing why, and others are unsettled in your presence without cause. And what then is your task? It is not to hide the flame, nor to boast in it. It is to let it burn as it was meant to burn. Those who notice you may misunderstand, they may resist, they may even oppose, but remember, their noticing is a reminder to you. It says, you are not here by accident, you are marked for purpose. So when they notice you, whether with respect or with ridicule, do not despise it. It is the world's involuntary acknowledgement of the God who has placed His hand upon you. You carry His calling, and that calling cannot be unseen. Those marked by God are never truly hidden. Even in silence, something in them speaks. Those marked by God are never truly hidden. Even in silence, something in them speaks. You may have noticed how some people carry a kind of presence that lingers even after they leave the room. They are not trying to be noticed, nor are they putting on a performance, yet their existence carries a resonance that cannot be disguised. This is the mark of divine calling. It is not always loud, not always grand, but it is unmistakable. The one who carries God's purpose often appears quite ordinary to the casual eye, yet there is a quiet distinction about them. Their words may be few, their posture simple, their demeanor humble, yet something within them carries a weight beyond themselves. People sense it before they understand it. They may not even be able to explain why. But they know there is something different here. The truth is that those who belong to God cannot fully blend into the patterns of the world. They may try, they may wish for anonymity, they may long to escape the piercing awareness of others, but the calling that rests upon them will not permit invisibility. Even their silence testifies, even their restraint, their refusal to go along with what is wrong, speaks volumes. The life of such a person is like a lantern in the night. Whether or not it intends to shine far, its light naturally spills into the dark around it. This is why those marked by God are noticed. It is not because they are better or greater, but because they are carriers of something beyond human strength or talent. That divine imprint speaks louder than any crafted image or practiced word. There is also a weight to this reality. To be noticed in this way is not always pleasant. Sometimes it draws admiration, and sometimes it provokes resentment. Some will be drawn to you because they sense something they cannot name, and others will be disturbed because your life, even quietly, unsettles their comfort. You will find that your very presence can awaken either hope or hostility in the hearts of others. This is the paradox of divine calling. It shines, and that shining cannot be controlled. A soul lit by heaven cannot dim itself to ease the eyes of those who prefer darkness. And so even when you choose silence, even when you say nothing, even when you try to disappear, something in you speaks this reality should not lead to pride but to humility. For the mark is not self-made, nor is the voice within you your own. It is the echo of the one who placed his calling upon you. It is his truth that speaks through your silence, his light that shines through your ordinary presence, his hand that causes others to see in you what you do not see in yourself. The world is not noticing you because of you. The world is noticing you because you carry him. To be mocked by God is to live in the strange tension of being ordinary and extraordinary at once, ordinary in human frailty, extraordinary in divine purpose. And though the world may never fully understand what it perceives in you, it will never be able to ignore it. The weight of being noticed is not about your greatness, but about the treasure you carry. The weight of being noticed is not about your greatness, but about the treasure you carry. Many mistake attention for achievement, as if being seen by others is a reflection of personal brilliance or talent, but the truth runs deeper and quieter. When people sense something within you that draws their eyes, their questions, or even their judgments, it is not because you are flawless or extraordinary in yourself. It is because you hold something that belongs to another realm. The calling of God places within a person a treasure that does not rust, does not wither, and does not depend on human applause. And this treasure, though hidden in fragile vessels, radiates in ways that cannot be concealed. It is like carrying a lamp inside a clay jar. The jar is simple, unimpressive, even cracked, but the light inside it catches the attention of those who pass by. There is a humbling truth here. You are not noticed because you are sufficient, but because you are insufficient and yet chosen. People may admire your strength, but they are actually glimpsing the strength of the one who sustains you. They may be drawn to your words, but what holds them is not eloquence, it is truth that has been set aflame by a higher voice. They may watch your endurance, but what steadies them is not human willpower, it is the endurance of heaven flowing through fragile human resolve. The treasure is what draws attention, not the clay that holds it. And the moment we begin to think the clay is the reason, we misunderstand the very heart of calling. The weight of being noticed must be borne with humility, because to mistake borrowed glory for one's own is to cheapen the very gift entrusted to us. But though the treasure is the reason, the vessel is still chosen with care. This is why your life, with all its flaws and failures, has still been set apart to carry something sacred. The cracks in your story, the weaknesses in your character, the scars of your past, none of these disqualify you. In fact, they become the very spaces where the treasure shines through more clearly. People may see you and marvel, not because of your perfection, but because of the light that glows even through imperfection. And this is why attention can be heavy. To carry something eternal in the midst of a temporary world creates tension. To live as a bearer of divine truth in a place that often resists truth creates conflict. The notice you receive is not a crown to wear lightly. It is a reminder of responsibility. Those who carry this treasure must remember that being seen is not about being celebrated. Sometimes you are noticed not with admiration but with suspicion, not with gratitude but with resistance. The weight of being noticed lies in knowing that your life is not your own, that you are not free to live as though you were unmarked. You are a living testimony, even when you would rather retreat into silence. And that means others will watch, measure, question, and sometimes oppose. The treasure draws them, but it also exposes them, and in that exposure your life becomes a mirror they cannot avoid. The burden, then, is not to be spectacular, but to be faithful. It is not to shine for yourself, but to carry faithfully the light that was entrusted to you. And in doing so, you discover that the weight of being noticed is not a curse, nor is it a medal. It is the evidence that you are carrying something far greater than yourself. When eternity rests upon a person, time itself pays attention. When eternity rests upon a person, time itself pays attention. There is a strange quality about those who have been touched by something beyond the boundaries of the present age. They seem to live in the same moments as everyone else. They breathe the same air, walk the same streets, and endure the same seasons. Yet there is a depth to them that feels as if it does not belong entirely to this world. Their presence suggests that they are tethered to another dimension, a reality that stretches beyond clocks and calendars. Eternity has brushed against them, and in doing so, it has left a mark that time itself cannot overlook. People notice not because they understand what they see, but because something within them recognizes a resonance that comes from beyond the present moment. The world is bound by time, and everything in it is measured in beginnings and endings, rises and falls, arrivals and departures. Yet, when eternity settles upon a life, it alters the way that life interacts with time. Such a person is no longer merely defined by fleeting circumstances or temporary achievements. Their perspective shifts. They carry a vision that stretches further, a patience that endures longer, a courage that does not wither under immediate pressure, and this difference is visible. Others may not know the language of eternity, but they can sense when someone is living from a deeper source than mere survival. They can sense when someone carries values that do not expire with trends, convictions that do not bow to pressure, and hope that does not collapse under despair. Time, with all its rushing noise, pauses in the presence of such lives, as though it is forced to acknowledge that eternity has stepped into its territory. This reality can make a person both compelling and unsettling to those around them. For some, the brush of eternity through another life awakens a hunger they did not know they carried. They find themselves drawn, even without understanding why, because they catch a glimpse of permanence in a world of constant change. For others, that same presence becomes a disturbance. It exposes the fragility of temporary pursuits. It unsettles the illusion that life is only about the present moment. Eternity disrupts the false comfort of living as though time will go on forever. And so, when someone carries eternity within them, the reactions of others may be admiration, longing, or hostility. Yet in all cases, time itself bends to acknowledge the reality of eternity made visible in human form. To live under this mark is not easy. It requires learning to walk with one foot in the present and one in the eternal. It requires speaking in ways that those bound by time can understand, while never betraying the truth of the infinite reality you carry. It requires endurance when others dismiss you, courage when others resist you, humility when others praise you. But above all, it requires faithfulness, for the presence of eternity within you is not given for your own glory, but as a testimony that time is not the final word. Every breath you take, every act of integrity, every moment of compassion, becomes a declaration that something greater than time is at work. And while you move through ordinary days, eternity within you makes even those days extraordinary. This is why time itself pays attention, because through you it encounters something beyond itself, something that will outlast it. Something it cannot contain. Being noticed is not a burden to fear, but a sign you are walking in divine purpose. Being noticed is not a burden to fear, but a sign you are walking in divine purpose. It is natural to want to escape the gaze of others, to wish for a quieter path where your life is not constantly measured, questioned, or scrutinized. Yet the reality of calling is that it places you in sight, even when you did not seek it. The notice of others is not always applause, and it is not always condemnation, but it is always a form of acknowledgement. It reveals that there is something upon your life that cannot be ignored. And rather than fearing this, you are invited to understand it as a confirmation that the steps you are taking align with a greater plan. The eyes that follow you, the attention that feels heavy at times, the whispers and judgments that circle your name, these are not random. They are the echoes of divine purpose made visible. Every person longs, at some level, to live with meaning, to know that their journey is not wasted in trivial pursuits. Yet when meaning becomes manifest in a life touched by God, that life cannot remain hidden. Divine purpose carries its own light, and light always draws eyes. This does not mean the person is flawless or that their path is free from struggle, but it does mean their direction has been set by hands stronger than their own. People may not understand the details of your journey, but they sense there is direction. They may not agree with your choices, but they recognize there is conviction. And in a world where so many wander aimlessly, conviction itself is enough to make others turn their heads. Being noticed, then, is not proof that you are impressive. It is proof that you are aligned with something weighty enough to be seen. The fear of being noticed often comes from the pressure it brings. It is easy to believe that attention demands perfection, that being watched requires flawless strength. But divine purpose was never built on human perfection. It was built on surrender. What others notice in you is not your ability to always succeed, but your refusal to abandon the call even when failure comes. They notice the resilience that rises after falling, the hope that endures after loss, the faith that persists even when the outcome is uncertain. These qualities are not born from self-sufficiency, but from reliance on God's hand guiding you. And because these qualities are rare, they stand out sharply in a world so often marked by despair and compromise. People are not simply noticing you, they are noticing the one who strengthens you. It is also true that being noticed can attract misunderstanding. Some will watch with admiration, others with suspicion, and still others with envy. But all of these responses testify to the same truth. Your life is not invisible. You are carrying something that has weight in the spiritual and visible world alike. If you were aimless, if your steps were shallow, no one would care enough to pay attention. The very fact that people notice you, whether with love or with criticism, signals that your path intersects with purpose. And this is why you need not fear. For to fear being noticed is to forget that it is not about you at all. It is about the God who chose to place his mark upon your journey. Their eyes may be on you, but the glory belongs to him. Their attention may weigh on you, but the strength to bear it comes from him. To be noticed is not to be trapped in the gaze of the world, but to be reminded that you are already seen and upheld by the gaze of heaven. The world may misunderstand your calling, but it cannot ignore it. The world may misunderstand your calling, but it cannot ignore it. To walk with God's purpose upon your life is to carry something that will never fully fit into the categories people use to explain or measure. Others may try to define you by their standards, to reduce your path to something familiar, or to interpret your decisions through the lens of their own limited understanding. But calling always exceeds the boundaries of human explanation. It comes from a place deeper than logic, older than history, stronger than culture. And so the world, faced with something it cannot fully grasp, will often choose to misunderstand. They may label you stubborn when in truth you are simply obedient. They may call you unrealistic when in reality you are walking by faith. They may see foolishness where heaven sees wisdom. But while they may misunderstand, they cannot erase the undeniable evidence of a life touched by divine direction. There is a tension in this experience. On one hand, it can feel isolating to know that those around you do not always perceive the reason behind your choices, your convictions, or your perseverance. You may long for others to see what you see, to understand what drives you, to share in the certainty that burns within you. Yet, on the other hand, there is a profound assurance in recognizing that misunderstanding itself is proof of the authenticity of your calling. If the world could completely comprehend it, then it would not be divine in origin. What comes from God will always carry an element of mystery to human eyes. It will always unsettle assumptions, challenge expectations, and resist being contained by ordinary categories. Misunderstanding, then, is not a failure, but a signpost that you are living according to something beyond human invention still. Misunderstanding does not mean invisibility. Even when people cannot explain your life, they cannot ignore it. There is a power in authenticity that captures attention. When you remain steadfast in your convictions despite opposition, when you continue to walk forward even through valleys of difficulty, when you hold to hope when circumstances argue against it, others notice. They may shake their heads, they may question your reasoning, they may even oppose you outright, but they cannot dismiss the reality of your perseverance. They cannot deny that something sustains you beyond what is visible. They cannot ignore the light that shines through you even when they prefer the shadows. Your calling may be misinterpreted, but it cannot be erased. The challenge, then, is to endure being misunderstood without letting it distort your identity. You are not defined by the opinions of those who see only fragments of your journey. You are defined by the one who authored it. Their misunderstanding may feel heavy, but it is not the measure of your worth or the value of your calling. Their inability to see clearly does not mean you are walking wrongly. What matters is that you remain faithful to the voice that called you in the first place. That voice is steady even when the world is noisy, clear even when others are confused, unwavering even when every eye around you sees differently. To walk in your calling is to accept that misunderstanding will follow, but so too will recognition. For though the world may twist your story, it cannot silence the evidence of God's hand upon your life.